think I'm just making an announcement that we're starting soon. 2 minutes. All right, everybody, we're going to be starting in 2 minutes, okay? 2 minutes. Buy your raffle tickets. About what? There's upcoming stuff. We just don't have any recaps live. I'm going to stay here. So I can just hit the next slide? Yeah. Welcome everybody to another wonderful night of See and Learn. Yay! As always, we would like to thank our sponsors. Brought to you by Carib Trans is our live streaming. Oh, we almost got it. There we go, JJ and the tech support. Live streaming is brought to you by Carib Trans. And our expert tonight, Tadzio, and his wife, Michelle, are staying at the lovely Hummingbird Villa. So big round of applause for Hummingbird. Yes. And as always, we'd like to give a special thanks to Prince Bernhard Culture Funds and the public entity of Saba. And a big thank you to all of our sponsors, many of whom are here tonight. Thank you. All right, and as you might have heard Lynn mention, we are selling raffle tickets for $5 per ticket, and we have all of these amazing prizes. We have 4 cottages and villas donating 3-night stays for free. We have a lovely wrap by Anna Keene made out of indigo leaves. We have jewelry made by Marie, made by Joe Bean. We have Edie Witter's new book, Below the Edge of Darkness. It is a signed copy. We also have a 1-week stay on the Caribbean Explorer, diving, accommodation, meals, everything is included. And then we also have a guided hike by the Saba Conservation Foundation, as well as a handcrafted knife made by John. Yeah, big prizes, everyone. And a few upcoming events at a glance. Tomorrow night, we have our next presentation by another shark expert, Mitch Ryder. It will be at Shea Booba Bistro. Then on the 13th and the 14th, you can dive with Mitch and learn more about sharks, turtles, and acoustic telemetry. And then also on Wednesday at the Hell's Gate Community Center, our sea slug expert will be giving his presentation on lettuce leaf sea slugs. Yeah, you wish you were there. Yeah. And then just a little bit of a recap before we begin tonight. The past few days, we've been doing a lot of activities. Our spider and scorpion expert, Lauren Esposito, and her whole crew, they did a night hike last night, and we saw, was it last night? No, Friday night, I don't know what day it is. We saw scorpions under UV light, several spiders, grasshoppers, crickets, yeah. And then she also visited the schools. She worked with the K through second graders, and they made little like clay models of scorpions and spiders, looked at them under the microscope, and also saw live animals. We also had an ROV build with Erica Moulton with the kids and another adult session. And what else have we been up to? Elska and Rynud did a field project at the St. John's monitoring site to see how they monitor the volcanic activity on Saba, specifically Mount Scenery. So that was pretty cool. They also brought a Lego seismometer to the school, so the kids got to build their own and see the data on a computer. So it was all pretty cool. And today, some of you were lucky enough to go on a shark dive with Tadzio this afternoon. Well, we only saw a shark from the distance. It was all right. Yeah, it was good. It was good. All right. Okay, so without further ado, let me introduce our main speaker. Once the car drives past. All right, Tadzio was born on St. Martin and spent the first years of his life in the Dutch Caribbean islands. He has worked in places like Bermuda and Tanzania on projects to restore reef ecosystems and has worked with local citizens to become advocates for the environment. He is the recipient of the McFarland Award for Conservation Leadership in the Insular Caribbean. He was instrumental in establishing the Man of War Shoal Marine Protected Area in St. Martin and is now the director of DCNA. Does anyone know what DCNA stands for?
Not you, that's
You don't count. No. Anyone? A tourist? Anyone here?
Is there a t-shirt involved?
They can be.
Maybe. That could be another raffle prize.
Yeah.
Anyone?
We'll get to it.
Dutch Caribbean Nature Alliance. You got it.
Yeah,
The
woo,
director.
yeah.
A coaster. All right. So without further ado, I'll pass off it to the shark wrangling expert himself, Tadzio Bervoets.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's let you do a little audio-visual check. Seems everything is good. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. It's a great attendance. Doesn't help my nervousness, but together we'll get through it. This is my fourth or fifth time, maybe sixth time attending See and Learn, and it's a pleasure every time to be here. The first time, I was a fresh marine park manager just off of establishing the marine park in St. Martin. We actually gave a presentation on sharks down in the bottom, and then now I feel as if we've come full circle, and I really hope to see and Learn grow and continue into perpetuity. So thank you, everyone, the folks from See and Learn, for bringing me here and for being such gracious hosts. So without further ado, let's do a clicker check, and it works. So this evening we're going to talk about sharks, tiger sharks in particular. It's a little bit of feedback. Maybe this has to get turned off. Or it's off already? All right. Tiger sharks in particular, and we're going to focus in particular on some of the work that we did in August, tagging tiger sharks on the Saba bank. So how is the presentation going to run? I'm going to first talk a little bit about DCNA, although some of you already know what DCNA stands for. There can be a t-shirt involved, I can assure you. It could be a raffle prize for next year's See and Learn. Then I'm going to talk about the background of our shark work, and then I'm going to focus specifically on the work that we've been doing the past couple of months on the Saba bank. So, as promised, a little bit of a background on DCNA. I have the great pleasure to be the director of the Dutch Caribbean Nature Alliance. DCNA is a network organization that provides both financial and capacity support to the nature conservation organizations or the protected area management organizations on all 6 islands of the Dutch Caribbean. So here on Saba, that would be the Saba Conservation Foundation. I'm happy to see some folks from SCF in the audience here tonight. Big shout out, big up yourself. On St. Martin, that would be the St. Martin Nature Foundation, which I had the pleasure of managing for about 10 years. On Statia, that would be Stinapa St. Eustatius, which I actually used to manage the marine park at before I went to St. Martin. And then the Aruba National Parks Foundation, Carmabi, Curacao, and Stinapa on Bonaire. This slide also highlights the challenges that we're faced with. Although we do excellent work, that feedback is a bit annoying, but I'm sure it'll be solved. Also highlights some of the challenges that we're faced with is that we have to provide support to 6 different organizations spread across a wide geographical range. So you can imagine that it is sometimes challenging, but I love my job. The Dutch Caribbean is very unique. The ecosystems range from lush rainforests, such as the ones that we can find here and on Statia, to desert landscapes, particularly on the ABC Islands, although with climate change, who knows, Saba might be next to have desert landscapes. Wetlands, dunes, and salinas, mangrove forests, seagrass beds, and undoubtedly my favorite, coral reef ecosystems. The Dutch Caribbean is also an area of high endemism. We have about 200 endemic species, which range from marine snails all the way down to reptiles and bird species. And what is my favorite bird? The Lora, or yellow-shouldered Amazon, which is endemic to Bonaire. And all of this information makes us the biodiversity hotspot of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The Secretariat for DCNA, which I'm the director of, is based on Bonaire, and I have the pleasure to work with some of the most awesome people in the field. You might recognize this person here. She's also in the audience, Dalia. But all of us are legends in our own right, Emery, Tineke, and Judy. I cannot be more fortunate to work with the people that I work with. So what are we trying to protect? What are we trying to research? And in our case here tonight, we're trying to conserve the shark population of the Dutch Caribbean. So there are 3 groups of fish. Jawless fish, which include lampreys and some people I know. There are sharks. There are sharks, skates, and rays. I'm not going to get into the scientific terms. There are bony fish, and there are more than 20,000 species of fish, which means that they are the most diverse groups of vertebrate animals. Everybody knows what vertebrate animals are, animals with a backbone. Sharks are fish, duh. They are ecotherms, which means that their body temperature is influenced by the outside temperature. They're usually cold-blooded, although there are some shark species, the laminate sharks, great white sharks, mako sharks, pork beagles, etc., that have a slightly higher body temperature than the water temperature. Characteristics of sharks that are different from bony fish: cartilaginous skeletons. They can only swim forward, which is a motto that I live by. They have large, oily livers for buoyancy instead of a swim bladder. They have gill slits but no bony gill cover. Their eggs are fertilized within the female's body, and their skin is made out of rough denticles, sandpaper-like dermal denticles, which after a long day of shark tagging, the folks that were on the expedition in August can tell you, when you take a shower after a long day of shark tagging, you tend to feel what we affectionately refer to as shark burn. The most commonly cited sharks in the Caribbean, we have the hammies, the reefies, the stripy bites, and the whale sharks. The bull shark, which has the highest level of testosterone of any animal in the animal kingdom. So basically, they're pissed off 14-year-old boys. We have the lemon sharks, which are the most challenging shark to work with, in my opinion, when we're doing shark tagging, because they can go around and bite their own tail. So, it's quite nerve-wracking to be working on a lemon shark. You have nurse sharks, which we affectionately refer to as big catfish. They are my favorite shark to tag, definitely not. And we have blacktip reef sharks, which always look quite disagreeable because it's always perpetually upset because Caribbean reef sharks are always referred to as blacktip reef sharks. So the motto of the blacktip reef shark, just because it has a black tip. Hello? Can you hear me still? On the mic? On the mic. And I will tuck this away. So the motto of the blacktip reef shark, just because it has a black tip doesn't make it a black tip. So just something to realize, most of the sharks that you see swimming around here that look like a black tip or have a black tip is actually a Caribbean reef sharks. Blacktip reef sharks are actually quite rare in this part of the Caribbean. Let's not forget our flat shark friends, the manta ray, the spotted eagle ray, southern stingray, and the roughies. So conservation. As many of you probably know, some of the sharks, generally speaking, not only in the ocean, but generally speaking, are some of the most endangered animals within the animal kingdom. Some of the largest sharks are significantly decreasing in population. People have used sharks for food, medicines, which is totally not rooted in any type of scientific fact, jewelry, and weapons. Although I would love to train a shark as a weapon. To me, that sounds like a pretty cool project. We should find some funding for that, Dahlia, to see if we can make that work. Millions of sharks are caught each year as bycatch, specifically, during various methods of fishery, but especially in longline fishery, millions of sharks are usually caught as bycatch. Some sharks are caught for finning. It's a horrible practice. The sharks are usually caught alive. The fins are cut off while the animal is still alive. The animal is thrown overboard while it is still alive, and it dies a horribly slow and painful death. Sharks also grow very slowly. They have very few young. And because of this, sharks are some of the most threatened, as I mentioned, some of the most threatened and endangered animals in the animal kingdom, not only in the ocean, but generally speaking. Whale sharks are currently endangered, and as of April this year, the Caribbean reef shark, so not the blacktip, the Caribbean reef shark are also listed by IUCN as an endangered species. So I stole this deck from a good friend of mine, Colin Roberts. If you see him, don't rat me out. But this kind of shows what some of the measures that can be implemented to save the species. So we range from extremely high pressure on the reef, or extremely high fishing pressure, to no fishing pressures. So, oops. You're not supposed to go that far, but anyway. So this is what happens when we have fisheries measures alone, so controlling the types of fish that you're able to catch, et cetera, et cetera. And as you can see, we have some striped parrotfish, some squirrelfish, some tangs here, and very low coral cover. Yeah, this is what happens if you have marine protected areas. Saba Bank is one of the, sorry, not Saba Bank. The Saba National Marine Park is one of the better known marine protected areas in the Atlantic. And if you have marine protected areas in place, you kind of have, let's see, if you have marine protected areas in place, you have an increase in sort of branching coral cover, stony coral, an increase in fish species. But really what we want to go for, and what we've actually achieved here in the Dutch Caribbean, is megafauna, or large animal sanctuaries. In this case, it's called the Harare sanctuaries, and it's only with fisheries measures, marine protected areas, and megafauna sanctuaries that you can have really a holistic conservation of these critically important animals for the health of the ocean ecosystem. And I'll talk about the Harare sanctuary in some subsequent slides. And as I mentioned, these are some of the most endangered animals in the ocean. 100 million and this is a low estimate, 100 million sharks are killed each year. I must give a little bit of warning, especially for the kids in the audience. Some of the following slides can be a little bit challenging to watch, so you've been forewarned. So why do we do what we're doing? Why conserve these species? We do have a problem. This is actually a picture. Luckily, it is not a picture that was taken recently, but this is a Coast Guard picture of a Taiwanese longline fishing boat fishing on the Saba bank. And as you can see, it's filled. They were targeting sharks, and it's filled with, what is that? A couple of tiger sharks, some reef sharks, not black tips, a couple of sandbars, looks like. So there has been a historical record of shark-targeted fisheries, especially by longline Taiwanese fishing boats on the Saba bank. Luckily, it doesn't happen that often anymore. This is from Anguilla, and like I mentioned, some of these videos are pretty hard to watch. So this animal was caught alive. It was dragged onto the beach. It was unceremoniously dragged up to the beach. Eventually, the animal died, and it was subsequently just dragged onto the landfill, where it was left to rot. This is also a very tough video from St. Martin. So we were actually able to identify that, especially here in the Northeastern Caribbean, we did have some issues when it came to shark conservation and conserving what is an apex predator, very important for the balance of the ocean ecosystem. But not only in the Northeastern Caribbean, this is a picture which was taken on Bonaire. It's missing an E. I'm sure it was in the presentation, it's not my fault. This is a picture which was taken on Bonaire, which is, has a reputation as being, the conservation epicenter in the Caribbean region. This waste of air caught this animal in Aruba. Also Aruba. The next few slides are all Aruba. It's a thorn in my side. Also Aruba. Also Aruba. Also Aruba. This was in St. Martin. Actually, this is after we were able to implement conservation measures for the species in St. Martin. And I almost got beat up here, actually, because I got chased down the boardwalk on St. Martin by a group of fishermen because I stopped them. But luckily, the police did show up and give the support that we needed. This is a hammerhead carcass that was found on Curacao. And then on St. Martin, even though there are shark conservation measures on the islands, sometimes we still have poaching occurring. And then, of course, globally, there's also a problem. I also do some anti-poaching work, and you always come across, especially for the Asian market, where it says that if you eat a certain animal, especially for men, it will enhance your performance. But my thinking is, if you need to eat shark fins to enhance your performance, then you have a bigger problem going on. That won't be solved by eating anything, basically. Go see a doctor. And then, unfortunately, you also have, because you're dealing with an apex predator, big animal, top of the food chain, unfortunately, you also have negative human-shark interactions. And in this case, there was a fatal incident which happened on Orient Beach in St. Martin, which happens, it's unfortunately something that we do have to deal with. But one of the most unfortunate things about that incident that happened is that throughout the Caribbean, because there was an incident on St. Martin, then there was a subsequent incident between St. Kitts and Nevis, where a young lady who was doing an open ocean swim got attacked, or I don't like to use attack, but there was an incident where she lost her leg, and because of the negative publicity we were faced with throughout the Caribbean, people basically taking revenge on sharks. And this is a video that was sent to us from Dominica. But luckily, we all know, as all responsible people know, that selfies kill more people than sharks do in any given year. So what did we do? We make sure to focus. We applied to the Dutch postcode lottery, and eventually, because of the lobbying that we were able to do, they decided to fund our shark conservation work. They gave us €7 million, and we were able to implement what we granted with a bit of lack of imagination, called the Save Our Sharks Project, because that's what we wanted to do. And I often like to say that gambling money supports shark conservation projects in the Dutch Caribbean. Many people don't like to hear it, but it's a fact. So what did we do? We were able to visit schools on all 6 islands of the Dutch Caribbean. And this is my friend Tuan, who dressed up in a hammerhead costume and went to all of the schools wearing set hammerhead costumes. He also visited all the bars, drank too much, got sick in the costume, and didn't clean it, didn't carry it to the dry cleaner. And then it was my turn, and I stepped into this thing, and it was pretty gnarly. We also developed a youth club where we taught the kids to dive. We also gave them information on shark conservation, and we also were able to use those kids as scientific observers during some of the shark work that we were doing with the dive operators. We also brought some celebrities over, including what I was told is a very famous comedian in the Netherlands, who also was able to engage with the population of the islands and to act as an ambassador for shark conservation. He also left me a $300 bill at one of the bars, which I was not aware of. And one of the most important activities that we did, which was in fact a huge success on Saba, is fishermen engagement. So very early on, we also engaged the fishermen community. We established an exchange program. They were involved in the tag and release program that we did as well. They were part of the monitoring. They acted as citizen scientists. Were part of the distribution, the research that we use to establish where the animals are, et cetera, et cetera. And there's actually, quite wide success, especially here on Saba, on the involvement of the fishermen contributing to science. Likewise on Statia, this is a project that we were also involved with in Statia to try and figure out how to exclude nurse sharks from the lobster traps. And this is a good friend of mine, Stefan, who is a recreational fisherman who actually tagged the first shark in the Dutch Caribbean just using a standard rod and reel. We also did some genetic barcoding work. We worked together with the Smithsonian Institute in DC, where, for 2 weeks I just cruised through all the restaurants on St. Martin, gathered everything that we thought might have contained products related to sharks. We took the genetic samples, packed them up into vials, shipped them off to the Smithsonian Institute, and we got some very interesting results. Not only interesting in terms of, identifying the species of sharks which were consumed, but we also, established that there's quite a bit of mislabeling of seafood, especially on a high tourism-driven economy. I think I lost this. Did somebody step on something? Yeah, here we go. That there was significant mislabeling of seafood products on St. Martin. So, things like, let's pick one, fish and chips red snapper, blue shark. The only thing is that these are not local species, but they are species that fall under the CITES regulation. And for us as Caribbean people, and for my Caribbean people in the audience, what was very disturbing is that quite a bit of products which were labeled as saltfish, which is a staple in the Caribbean, were actually species of shark. So for my Caribbean people out there, this is proof that, in fact, not all saltfish is sweet. We also did a diver study, as I mentioned, where we involved dive operators and divers on all 6 islands who were able to contribute to the data about the sharks that they were able to identify and to cite. Something similar to what we did today. So today, we saw a nurse shark, at least we think we did. But even not seeing an animal, it's a 0 count, which is also a count. So that data is also important to include in some of the research that we are doing. And then my favorite part is some of the scientific work that we were able to do. So what we first wanted to establish before we decided to upscale our research is we wanted to know which species were there and where they were hanging out. So the first thing that we did, we deployed baited remote underwater videos, which is basically a frame, a heavy frame that we built out of stainless or aluminum with a video camera attached to it, with a pole sticking out, and attached to that pole, we had a bait bag. Drop it in the water for a certain period of time, and then it records all of the species that swim in front of the camera. I had some interns that came specifically to deal with that. This is supposed to have sound. Wasn't me. All right, okay. So of course, this was a study that we did in 2013 and 2014. Of course, it didn't only, oops, what's going on here? Of course, it wasn't only a fancy video that our interns, Jens and Olivier, at that time had to make, but they also came out with a report. And on the basis of that report, we decided that we had enough species, especially that baby tiger shark, which we all lost our minds over, that we had enough species that justified us upscaling our shark conservation work. So the next thing that we did, and we started that here on Saba actually, is our acoustic telemetry work. I will not get into what acoustic telemetry is, because that's the topic for tomorrow's talk, but we did establish quite a significant acoustic telemetry array on all 6 islands of the Dutch Caribbean. Like I mentioned, I'll leave this topic for tomorrow. So with all of that data, with all of that new insight, with that new information, we were like, all right, so what we're going to do next? Next, we're going to actually physically tag the sharks. The way that we do it is a method called drumlining. And it is actually a method which was adapted from Australia and South Africa that they use to cull, quote unquote, problem sharks. So what does it involve? It involves a surface buoy. Right below that surface buoy, there is what we call a gangion line. To that gangion line is a baited hook. We use high carbon circle hooks. So even if we're not able to cut the hook out of the animal, because of the high carbon content in the hook, it just rusts out in a couple of months. So we don't feel too bad in case that it's embedded so deep that we're unable to cut it out. It'll eventually will rust out on its own. The bait that we use is bonito. It's a small fish in the tuna family, very high blood content. Tiger sharks especially love it. Then we have a downline, and in South Africa, Australia, they use anchors as the bottom weight. Here we don't use anchors. In the US, because US is fancy, they use dock caps. Dock caps, are the caps that go on top of dock pilings. They fill them with concrete, and they use as a weight to attach the line to the bottom, or to sink the line to the bottom of the sea. We have no idea what dock caps are in this part of the world. So what we did, we just took a whole bunch of traffic cones, put a pin in them, filled them with concrete, lifted it up, and we said, all right, well, I think this is heavy enough. Let's hope it works. And eventually it did. So on St. Martin in the warehouse, there's, I think, 15 or 16 traffic cones filled with concrete. Nobody, when people get there, they're like, what are these for? And it's like, you'll find out. So before I get to this is actually the first time we were tagging on the Saba Bank. So we got some funding, like I mentioned, from the Dutch Postcode Lottery, from the Dutch Postcode Lottery. And we were actually able to put together a tagging trip out to the Saba Bank in 2016. And this work was actually featured on the Discovery Channel Shark Week, which I hope to never do again, because having a film crew on board for 7 days is not something I would like to repeat. Luckily, on the other hand, when the special did come out, it was called Devil Shark. It came out in 2017. I was listed as Dr. Bervoets, so if Discovery Channel gives me a PhD, I guess I should take it. So this was the first animal that we caught and tagged.
214, fourth lane, 239. 239. Stretch total, 289. Let me know if you need a hand.
This is a pit tag. This is an electronic transmitter. The same that you put into pets that you're able to scan. It gives you a unique number. We put these in all of the animals that we tag.
Okay, my finger's there.
Fingers there?
Yep. First one.
That's the scanner.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, this is a tiger shark. Big fat tiger shark.
Hands cut. Okay. Tail rope. She's good.
Basking sharks are cool.
Okay. Okay, good.
All right, that was an excellent workup. Get gentlemen. Excellently done. Yeah, I'm quite winded. I was in bad shape those days. And then after we did the initial tagging, so the initial tagging involved taking a DNA sample, a fin clip, inserting a pit tag, taking measurements. The measurements we take are total length, fork length, and precaudal length. Precaudal length right before the caudal fin, so the tail fin, there's a little notch, and we bring the measuring tape to that notch. Those are the measurements that we took. And then when we became comfortable with that, we decided, okay, the next step in our research, because we really approached it in a stepwise fashion, the next step in our research is to actually attach satellite tags. The way we attach satellite tags, we drill a satellite transmitter in the fin. Tiger sharks often do surface basking. When they do the surface basking, it makes a handshake with a It makes a handshake with a satellite. That satellite transmits the information to the website from wildlife computers that we follow, and then we get the data of where the animal has been tracking. What you're going to see me doing here is drilling in a satellite tag. I must say it looks gnarly, but there are no nerve endings in the fin of a shark. So although it looks rough, the shark didn't react at all to what we were doing. And this is also on the Saba bank, just to be clear, in 2016. And you'll hear me grunting. It's an involved process to attach these tags.
Yeah, watch your fingers.
Yeah, we went through about 5 or 6 drills. We did better last month or 2 months ago.
Still lined up. Yeah. Nice job. Yeah.
Right, metal washer. You can see by the look on my face that it's not a comfortable thing to do. Satag run from between $2,000 to $5,000. So there's also that involved. Like, oh my God, I hope not to drop this thing in the drink because then we lost $5,000 and it's my fault. One of the interesting things is that we did this tagging exercise on Saba. On Saba, we mostly caught very large females. I think the last Saba bank trip that we did in August was the first time that we actually tagged a male tiger shark. But when we did the first trip in 2016, we tagged only very large females. So we kind of had a feeling that there was something going on. And then we started to tag in St. Martin, which has extensive seagrass beds. And we knew that seagrass is habitat for juvenile tiger sharks. And when we started to tag on St. Martin, we kept catching these very small, very juvenile subadult tiger sharks. So we kind of started to have this idea in our brain that we might have some connectivity between the Saba Bank, St. Martin, and that there might be something there in terms of the life cycle of the sharks. So the data that we got back from the first shark that we tagged is that there's a very high movement pattern, migratory pattern of the sharks that we tagged on the Saba Bank that traveled all the way down to the coast of Trinidad. No offense, Rissa, but when it was going to Trinidad, we was like, please avoid Trinidad because we don't want you turned into shark and bake. But luckily, the animals swam back north to Puerto Rico, and then Hurricane Irma happened, and we lost track of the shark. But this track shows that these animals use the whole breadth of the Caribbean region, and I'll get to why this is important in some of the later slides in the deck. So fast forward to late 2019, I get a phone call from Ayumi, and she's like, "Hey, Tadzio." I was like, "Yes, Ayumi." It's like, "How about we try to see," and Ayumi, by the way, for those that you don't know, she is the officer at the Saba Bank Management Unit. So shout out for Ayumi. She's not here. She's on vacation. Well deserved. So late 2019, I get a phone call while I was in Bonaire, sitting at my desk, feeling sorry for myself because I'm at my desk. I get a phone call from Ayumi, and she says, "Hey, Tadzio, why don't we see if we can approach WWF, aka the Panda, to see if we can get some funding from them to see, to establish actually if the Saba Bank is an important area in terms of the life cycle, breeding cycle of these animals." So, of course, I got totally excited. I said, sure. And then, the next step was to contact World Wildlife Fund and force them to give us funding, which they eventually did. This is a joke, by the way. We actually had to go through a funding application, but I'm sure this helped when we kidnapped the panda from the World Wildlife Fund. We also partnered with, we collaborated with our partner organization, Beneath the Waves, who also supported us in some scientific work, and especially some of our audiovisual work. And we did sort of a shakedown or warm-up on St. Martin in April of this year. We also worked with Arizona State University, the Sulikowski lab, whose specific expertise is ultrasounding. So the same ultrasound that humans and animals, land animals use, they adapted it to be able to track to see if there was any, if the tiger sharks that we were catching on the Saba Bank were actually carrying any pups. And this is Brooke actually ultrasounding a tiger shark during our trip in August.
We really want to showcase that
Increase the volume.
these are wonderful species that have millions of years of evolution that are perfectly adapted to the ecosystem, that are critically important to the ecosystem, and that keep our oceans in balance.
So that was the St. Martin trip. After the St. Martin trip, we were like, okay, what we will then do is organize a wider trip to tag sharks on the Saba Bank. In order to do that, we identified the mothership. So we contracted the Caribbean Explorer. You got it. You guys got it. We were able to charter the Caribbean Explorer, and all jokes aside, they were an excellent dive platform, mothership platform. So the Explorer went out on the Saba Bank, tied onto one of the moorings at the Saba Conservation or the Saba Bank Management Unit, put out on the Saba Bank, and we were able to every evening come off of the ocean, off of the sea, go back to the Caribbean Explorer. We were well fed, well watered, and as a premier for the Caribbean Explorer, while we were shark tagging, they actually delivered pizza for us out on the Saba Bank while we were tagging sharks. So we are forever grateful to the Caribbean Explorer for making the trip such a memorable one. We, of course, also use the Queen Beatrix II, which is a Saba Bank Management Unit boat, as sort of the second mothership. They were specifically responsible for doing some of the baited remote underwater video camera work, and they were also an excellent addition to the team. And then, of course, we use the Lady Rebecca as the tag boat. It's much easier to use a small boat to tag the animals, but it's quite an experience to have, 12, 13-foot animal next to a 26-foot boat. It makes you believe in God. Dalia is going to correct me if I'm wrong, but during that trip in August, we tagged 56 sharks. I hear nothing to the contrary, of which 16. No, 56. We thought it was 59, but it was 56 because some of us have dyslexia. So we caught 56 sharks, of which 16 tigers, and we deployed 5 satellite tags. Yes, we deployed 5 satellite tags. So this is my colleague from St. Martin, Melanie. This is me, my game face on. This is Ayumi, and both of them are attaching the satellite tags to 5 of the 4 females and 1 male, because we were also very interested that we finally did catch a very large male, and we also wanted to track the movement patterns or the migratory patterns of the males, of the male that we caught. This is Sammy. We had one still photographer and one videographer on board because, you know, we wanted to make sure that we recorded the stuff that we were doing. And this is Brooke's hand, actually ultrasounding what is a very fat female tiger shark. This is a close-up of Brooke's hand, ultrasounding a very fat female tiger shark. Oh, yes, very good. Sharks, if you flip them upside down, and it happens also in other species, turtles, for example, when they lay their eggs, they go into a process called tonic immobility. Science doesn't really know, although I stand to be corrected, science doesn't really know what causes the process, but it's, you know, it helps in our work that we do. So we bring the shark in, process called walking the dog. Colleagues at the end of the boat put on the tail rope. I attach the head to the forward cleat. There's usually a line that goes on to the pectoral fin of the animal, and then, you know, we take the measurements, etc., and then we flip the animal upside down, and it causes a phenomenon called tonic immobility, which is basically the shark short-circuiting and passing out, which also allows us to, you know, gives us the time, and the shark is very chilled out, allows us to take our data collection off of the animal. And tiger sharks are very easy to work with. I mean, they're sturdy animals, they're very relaxed, very chill. They're big, which makes them heavy, but in fact, they're very, very easy animals to work with, as is compared to what is my favorite shark to tag, not the nurse shark. You bring them in, they spin, they spit at you, they're very difficult to tag, they have very rough skin, so tiger sharks are actually my favorite sharks to work with. Other species, such as the hammerhead, they are very sensitive, and whenever we have a hammerhead on the line, we tend to freak out because, oh my God, hammerheads are so sensitive, and they don't really handle a workup very well. But tigers, they are very easy animals to work with. So, of course, we were all, you know, excited as to what the results were, and we did have some success. So the first thing that we were able or the first animal that we were able to ultrasound was a female Caribbean reef shark, not a blacktip. And that female Caribbean reef shark we actually found to be carrying pups. You can just see an eye right here. Reefies usually carry 5 to 6, maybe 8 pups. So we were very excited that you know, we were able to actually, although it wasn't a tiger, that we were able to see that, you know, there was an animal that was carrying pups. And then this is the tiger shark now, I think, August 5th, yep, the tiger shark now, and we were also not so sure, but then we sent the results of the ultrasound to the lab in Arizona State, and indeed, we were able to see that there are some tiger sharks in very early stages of pregnancy. You can just see make out some eyes here. Tigers carry a litter of about 30 to 35, and the doc was able to establish that indeed the tiger shark that we caught on the last line of the last day was indeed, as it always happens with these type of things, just to make our lives miserable, that indeed the tiger that we caught during that was a female carrying pups in early stages of pregnancy. We then compared that to an ultrasound that we did on St. Martin, which carried pups in a more advanced stage of pregnancy. So one of the things that, you know, the working hypothesis that we have now, Saba Bank might be a breeding area for tiger sharks, but then they go to shallower areas with seagrass beds, which is the preferred habitat for them to have their pups. Probably St. Martin, probably also St. Bart's, probably also Anguilla, and probably also St. Eustatius, although that's still a theory. So the next step for us, before that. So of course we were all ecstatic because we did have success during the expedition, and we were all, you know, we all lost our minds. Last check of the last line on the last day. Before I go further, I must say that it was an absolute privilege and a pleasure to have worked with all of these guys. I consider all of these guys my friends. The folks that are in I'll just make some folks in the audience uncomfortable. Tom, Marijn, Dalia. I mean, it was such an absolute pleasure to work with these guys. I mean, we did epic stuff, we crushed it, but we also had a great time working with each other. So I can't express enough how grateful I am to have been able to go on this trip with you guys. So, what is the ultimate goal of the stuff that we're doing? In 2015, also because, 2015, 2016, I don't remember. Alcohol abuse. In 2015, 2016, we were lucky enough to have some VIPs or a VIP go out and announce that the waters of Saba, Bonaire, and after that St. Eustatius were established as the Yarari Marine Mammal and Shark Sanctuary. So officially the species are protected in all of the EEZ of the Caribbean Netherlands. So the EEZ of St. Eustatius, Saba, and St. Martin. So the VIP in this case is right here, and next to her is the former State Secretary for the Netherlands, Sharon Dijksma. And this is Dalia. So what is the goal? In making this presentation day before yesterday, it's true, I was talking to my wife and she said, which stuck with me, data determines decisions. So we're really using the data that we were able to collect during the few years, during the 6 or 7 years that we've been doing this work. We really want to use that data going back to 2014, 2015. We're pushing to include St. Martin especially, but of course also Aruba and Curacao in the Yarari Sanctuary, but we really want to focus on St. Martin to be included in the sanctuary because of the high potential that St. Martin is important for the pupping, as a pupping area for these species. And then we're also going to include the information that we collected, process it. So now we're in the data processing phase. We're going to include it in the development of the Yarari management plan, because the Yarari has been established. Currently it's going through the legal review, and now we're going through the stages of drafting the management plan for the area. And then we hope to do it all again on the ABC Islands, on Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. So that's the dream, and that's the goal that we're working towards. And then as you remember that I showed the track of the shark that we tagged on the Saba Bank that went all the way down the Caribbean chain, we kind of used that information, and then together with our partners at Beneath the Waves, we established the Caribbean Shark Coalition. So also with support from WWF, no pandas were harmed in the application for funding. So together with the support from WWF, in 2020 we established the Caribbean Shark Coalition, which is really a coalition of research institutions, researchers, grassroots organizations, conservation organizations, NGOs to really enhance the knowledge of sharks in the Caribbean region. And the goal is to ultimately be able to train everyone that wants to be trained in shark conservation, whether it's science, education packages, et cetera, throughout the whole region to enhance the protection of these animals and, of course, their habitat in the wider Caribbean region. We already did so in June 2021. I went to the Turks and Caicos Islands. I promise you that this is my foot. We went to the Turks and Caicos Islands where we also did some shark tagging. This was my favorite shark to tag, a nurse shark that we tagged. The day after this picture was taken, we also tagged a few Caribbean reef sharks and a lemon shark. And then hopefully the next rodeo that we'll be a part of is the Jamaica shark tagging program, where we hope to go to Jamaica to be able to tag some of the sharks, maybe not around coastal Jamaica, but definitely on the Pedro Keys. And then, you know, the main reason for this focus of establishing the Caribbean Shark Coalition is that we really want to push, have a regional push for the establishment of large marine protected areas in the Caribbean region. We wrote an article in Science magazine together with Austin. We're all friends, so Austin, Diva, Ollie, Neil, and Dave. We really wanted to really make a case for the establishment of large marine protected areas in the insular Caribbean. Transboundary, multinational, to really enhance the migratory corridors of these species and their associated habitat. Some volume for this, please. We're getting to the end of my talk, and it would be remiss of me to not mention that all of this work, all of the expedition planning, the success that we were able to book would have been impossible without the help and professionalism of Dalia. She deserves a huge round of applause. Without her, it definitely would not have been possible. And we planned this during a pandemic, so endless Zoom calls, planning sessions, etc., etc. But like I said, we would be unable to pull it off without Dalia's hard work. And this is Roxanne, who saved my life during the IUCN conference in France a couple of weeks ago, but that's a story for a different talk. And then also our very own Emily, who also was an integral part of the planning and execution of this expedition. So thank you so much, Emily. Not only are you a legend in terms of See and Learn, but you were also instrumental in making this expedition a success. So I have one more video. It's a recap. It includes all the sponsors. Instead of me saying it, I thought it would be a good idea if you just listen to the video and I shut my trap. Okay, a little more volume on that. My name is Tadzio Bervoets. I am the director of the Dutch Caribbean Nature Alliance. For this trip, I am also expedition lead. We are here in the middle of the Saba Bank, where we hope to tag pregnant female tiger sharks. A few months ago, I got a message from my colleague at the Saba Bank Management Unit, Ayumi, who said, hey, why don't we see if we can put a project together with the help of the World Wildlife Fund for Nature in the Netherlands to see if we can put together an expedition to record the tiger shark population on the Saba Bank. And specifically to see whether or not the Saba Bank acts as a breeding area for the species, and to see if we are able to establish that the tigers that are on the Saba Bank are actually carrying babies. For us, that's very critical because the Saba Bank forms part of the Harare Marine Mammal and Shark Sanctuary. While the sanctuary is in place, there is hardly any data that supports the shark population, or there's very little data, especially in terms of the life cycle and breeding population of especially the big tiger sharks. Does it make sense for me to play this? Nobody can really hear it.
Third largest submerged atoll, so it's quite unique, not only in the Atlantic or the Caribbean Sea, but also globally. And white tiger sharks, these are highly migratory species. They're also emblematic for the Saba Bank. And they also tie in the various ecosystems, or the various marine ecosystems of the Caribbean. During previous expeditions, we've tagged tigers that have traveled from the Saba Bank all the way south to the northern coast of Venezuela. They've crossed every geographical boundary or geopolitical boundary in the Caribbean Sea. So we really want to establish the life cycle and the migratory patterns of especially the female, and in this case the pregnant female tiger sharks. Through the support that we get from the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, we're also able to involve our colleagues and representatives from the other marine protected area management organizations throughout the Dutch Caribbean. So, for this trip we have representatives from the St. Martin Nature Foundation, from the St. Eustatius National Parks, from the Saba Conservation Foundation, of course, because we're on the Saba Bank, but also from the Bonaire Marine Park and from Aruba National Parks Foundation. So it's really good to all come together as representatives from the different organizations to be able to collaborate, share data, but also build the capacity for shark research in the Dutch Caribbean. On top of that, we also have representatives from Arizona State University who specifically have brought the expertise on ultrasounding the large female tiger sharks to actually establish if they're carrying any pups, yes or no. The satellite telemetry is also very exciting because using the satellite data, we're able to establish possible migratory patterns in terms of where the pregnant females go to pup, whether or not there's connectivity between ecosystems in the islands around here. For example, when we're shark tagging in St. Martin, we often catch juvenile tiger sharks. or baby tiger sharks even. I think one of the smallest we were able to tag on St. Martin was around the 90-something centimeter mark. So we're really trying to establish these migratory corridors and establish what the different habitat and ecosystems mean to the life cycle of the species. Another reason why we're so excited with this trip in particular is because we also have representatives from Beneath the Waves. Beneath the Waves together with DCNA.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to hear, so I'm going to shamelessly plug the DCNA website, dcnanature.org, which includes all of the videos and all of the information. Our colleague Tineke does an excellent job with creating these products. So if you want any more information, if you want to rewatch these videos, if you want, not only information on the shark work that we do, but the support that we give to the different projects in the Dutch Caribbean, not only shark conservation, but also coral restoration, terrestrial work, bird work, marine protected area, terrestrial protected area. Please don't hesitate and going on dcnanature.org, signing on to BioNews. BioNews is our quote-unquote electronic newsletter that you receive, which gives all of the highlights of the work that we do. And that is it. Thank you very much for being here. So I'll be more than happy to answer your questions, any comments, critiques. Please direct them to Emily.
So do you think it might be a nursery around St. Martin with grassy seabed because it was shallow to escape predation?
Yes, that's a working theory. So Saba Bank, it's like bar where they all come together and make sexy time, and then afterwards, what we think is that they travel to the islands with shallower seagrass beds, where the pumps are protected. The smallest tiger that we tagged on St. Martin was a little under 90 centimeters, and that's tiny. When they're that small, it's basically a head and a tail. So with that info, we were like, there's something going on here. Of course, that also has some conservation management implications, especially for an island such as St. Martin, which has issues related to coastal development, destruction of seagrass beds, etc., etc. So that's why we're really trying to push through, government lobby, etc., to have those areas protected at St. Martin as well. I mean, we work very hard at St. Martin Nature Foundation to protect coral reef areas and surrounding seagrass habitat, but in no means, and St. Martin is not like Saba, St. Eustatius, and Bonaire, where surrounding the whole island is gathered as marine park. So there's specific areas that are set aside for conservation. So we're really trying to push to get those areas protected. So we do this through different avenues. Of course, direct lobbying with the government of St. Martin, but in the Caribbean. There's also the Cartagena Convention, which is the only binding marine biodiversity treaty that exists in the Caribbean. So through that international treaty, which I'm on a few of the steering committees for, we're really trying to push to get some of the governments in the region, not only St. Martin, but St. Vincent, Dominica, some of those other islands, Jamaica, to sign on to enhance shark conservation, not only for the species themselves, but also for the associated habitat, because that's really what we're trying to push, to use the species as the driver to protect the ecosystems that they call home.
How is cooperation with French St. Martin and Anguilla in terms of conservation?
I forgot about that. That's my bad.
So the first question was the seagrass beds on St. Martin and their importance for as a popping area, potential importance as a popping area for tiger sharks, which we think they are, and we're trying to get those protected. And then the next question is, what is how is the cooperation between us in the Dutch Caribbean and some of the islands in the region, including Anguilla and some of the French islands? Trying to be a little bit diplomatic here. It's challenging. Especially on an island like St. Martin, we worked very hard in 2011 to establish St. Martin as a shark sanctuary, where sharks are not able are not allowed to be caught, and if they are caught, they have to be released. and if they are brought on board dead, they have to contact the Nature Foundation, etc., etc. But on the French side, sharks are still allowed to be caught, and it's not as if, you know, the shark is going to be like, "Yeah, I hate French food. I'm going to stick around on the Dutch side because, you know." So we're really trying to work hard to cooperate with the guys on the French islands to make sure to enhance the shark conservation work transboundary, which is weird because it's one island, but we're really trying to push to have transboundary conservation work done. You know, I love the saying, never leave a good crisis go to waste. Unfortunately, with the fatal incident that happened on Orient Beach on the French side last year, it gave a little bit of more of an incentive to the folks on the French side to enhance their shark conservation work. So right now they're doing BRUF studies. The hope is that eventually they will go on to some of the telemetry work that we've been doing. So it has been increasing. Anguilla is also a challenge, but we really hope through the Caribbean Shark Coalition, which we've, you know, at the launching, we reached out to as many of our contacts as possible, including folks from Anguilla who also signed on to the Caribbean Shark Coalition. So hopefully through the avenue of the Caribbean Shark Coalition, we are trying to bring on board some of the more challenging areas to also implement some conservation measures, whether they're seasonal or, you know, restrictions on catch or species-specific conservation zones, etc., etc. So although it has been challenging in the past, through the Caribbean Shark Coalition, we're trying really hard to enhance some of the conservation, or to enhance at the very least the data collection, which will go towards informed decision making by the policymakers on those territories.
Your organization covers two very distinct parts of the Caribbean.
Right.
How different ecologically are the ABC islands from Saba Bay, Saba, Statia,
Quite different. For example, you know, the SSS islands, as we like to call them, they are more, especially Saba, lush rainforests, on Statia as well, St. Martin, also different habitat. The coral reefs are a lot different. Patch reefs, fringing reefs, not fringing reefs, mostly patch reefs, a lot of mangrove areas, seagrass beds, whereas in the Southern Caribbean, it's very dry desert landscapes, a lot of salinas, quite a lot of dunes, and then especially on Curacao and Bonaire, it's all fringing reef. You know, Curacao and Bonaire are oceanic islands. Aruba is connected to mainland Venezuela, so it's more similar to the northeastern Caribbean, but especially Bonaire and Curacao, it's all fringing reef habitat. So, you know, I talk to the guys here in these areas. When they go put a mooring in, they have to jump on a boat and get knocked around and do their dives, whereas, you know, in Curacao and Bonaire, they drive to their dive site, jump in the water, do their work, and then, you know, exit and drive back out. So it's a lot different. But it also comes with their challenges. I mean, for example, on Bonaire, it's very sensitive, even more sensitive than these islands in terms of pressure on the reef, because the reef is so close to shore. So if there's a development that impacts, you know, that has the potential to impact the reef, it has, you see it very quickly. Because, you know, you build a hotel or you build a jetty, it's direct impact on the coral reef ecosystem. So it is quite different. And I mean, not only in terms of ecosystem and habitat, they're also different culturally, they speak a different language, but, you know, we make do. I mean, we're able to cooperate and collaborate, and I think not only in terms of nature and conservation, but I think generally speaking, as an organization, we are one of the few that bring together all 6 islands in the Dutch Caribbean, which were split apart 11 years ago, you know, from the Netherlands Antilles into now distinct different groups, but we're still one of the organizations that are able to collaborate and cooperate with our very noble cause of protecting the environment on all 6 islands of the Dutch Caribbean. Any other questions, comments, suggestions, critiques you can direct to Emily?
My question is, you mentioned that you did not enjoy working with the Discovery Channel. Yeah, so you mentioned working with the Discovery Channel being challenging. Yeah. My question is, in science communication, you talked a lot about changing the narrative, for example, in St. Martin with sharks. Do you believe that the work that you have done with the Discovery Channel makes a big impact on changing people's opinion about sharks? Or do you
It's a great question. No. So the question was, do you think, I mentioned that working with the Discovery Channel was quite challenging, but do I think that having worked with the Discovery Channel and being featured on Shark Week, if it has made an impact on the perception of sharks in our islands? And I don't think so. I think many of the products that come out from especially Shark Week are a little bit trending towards the sensationalistic. For a while, there were some very good science-focused and conservation-focused programs out there. But I think, you know, the program that I was a part of, I mean, even the title of it is called Devil Shark. So whether or not it had any positive impacts, I am not so sure. Of course, it's nice to be featured on, you know, a program that is aired in front of millions and millions of people. They also called me doctor, which I keep them to. So, but if it has had a positive impact, I'm not so sure. I must say that the trend is towards a more science-based, some shows, not all. I guess it depends on who the producers are, et cetera, et cetera. But in that case, I'm not so sure if it had any positive benefits. And for me, I mean, the ulcers and the sleepless nights and, you know, the stress that having 6 film people and 2 tons of equipment, literally, we could have done without. But on the other hand, you know, it did give great contacts, and we were able to do epic work. So I guess it was not all bad. Yes.
Right now, do you think that the management plans or enforcement of the management plans is the problem why the shark population is still declining?
Sure. So the question is, do the management plans or the enforcement of management plans either contribute to shark conservation, or is there some lacking which results in a decline of the population? I think that captures it. I mean, it depends on which management plan. As I mentioned, the Harare Sanctuary does not have a management plan yet, an approved management plan. Is one of the reasons why we're doing this work, is to be able to contribute to that management plan and to ensure that that management plan is just not a piece of paper that sits on some desk somewhere collecting dust, but it's actually an executable management plan. But management plans are supposed to really be a tool to effectively manage ecosystems and the species that are associated with them. So if a management plan is properly, you know, sorry for the waterworks, Emily. If a management plan is properly developed, and proper development of a management plan, one of the traps that are often, that management plans or the development of management plans, one of the traps that people that develop these plans often fall into is inadequate stakeholder consultation. Luckily, the ones that are being developed at the moment involve good wide-scale stakeholder consultation to get enough buy-in with the wider community. But they can act as, or they do act, if properly done, act as a good tool for effective management. The big caveat with that is there has to be enough financial support along with a management plan to make it executable. I can talk until I'm blue in the face about the lack of financial support from the Kingdom of the Netherlands. I don't want to get in too much trouble, but that's a major consideration that has to be communicated, and that we are communicating to the various ministries in the Netherlands, is that, you know, management plans are all fine and well, nature and environment policy plans are all fine and well, implementation programs and plans are all fine and well, but if there's not adequate financial considerations to make sure that they're executed the way that they're supposed to be executed, then we can forget it. Then we can just absolutely forget it. And, you know, we collaborate quite extensively with law enforcement agencies, Coast Guard, et cetera, et cetera. But again, the focus for the Coast Guard is, you know, human smuggling and drug interdiction. Although the Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard is quite good in responding, their priority is definitely not nature conservation. So we really need to have, especially the financial resources, to build our capacity to be able to adequately manage and then also adequately enforce the items outlined in the respective management plans. But I do think that management plans are an effective and important tool to adequately protect nature. And they're actually a requirement. I mean, IUCN mandates that protected areas have management plans. I'm getting the wrap-up sign, which is a good idea because I want to drink beer and I'm hungry. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Tadzio. Another round of applause for Tadzio. And we'd like to give a big shout out for Long Haul for hosting us. And you guys are ready for dinner. Head towards the bar, have some drinks, have some food. We need to set the restaurant up with tables and chairs, so if you want to help with that, you're more than welcome to. And we will see you next time. Thank you for watching.